It's my real pleasure to have Kira Garfinkel here with us today on the Poetry X Hunger interview series. It's been a pleasure to get to know Kira over the last few months, almost now, I think a year or maybe more. Kira is the development manager of a really important organization up in New York City called West Side Campaign Against Hunger. And in fact, it's one of the largest emergency food providers in the city. And importantly, in 2022, the campaign launched an annual writing and poetry competition titled Writing Against Hunger. Prior to Kyra's work at the campaign, they were one of three original staff members for PAC in New York City, a new performing arts center, which recently opened its doors across from the 9/11 memorial. And Kyra also spent a number of years learning and practicing the art of pipe organ building, tuning, and repair. So, Kyra, it's really, really good to have you here today. Welcome to the series and looking forward to visiting with you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Tell us a little bit, if you could, about West Side Campaign Against Hunger. How long has it been going? And kind of roughly what sort of things, what kind of activities has it been involved with?
Sure. West Side Campaign Against Hunger, or as we like to call it here, we like to abbreviate ourselves to WSCAH.
It's good.
Um, WSCAH around these parts. It's emergency food and benefits provider. We've been doing this work for 45 years now. This is our 45th anniversary.
Wow.
Very exciting year for us. Also an exciting year because come 45, we in a sense, gave ourselves a present. Our community gave us a present, which was the opening of our first, what we call our food storage and distribution hub. It really our
Uh,
first dedicated location for this work. So WSCA began in I think among a wave of religious institutions responding to hunger in New York City in the 70s.
mhm.
It's very early days. It was something which was really involved with the Church of St. Paul and St. Andrews. Um, but for most of our history, we've been an entirely separate organization that was spun off from that initial effort by those congregants to address local hunger. And we've grown and changed quite a bit over the years. I mean, I think in the first year of the work of this organization, it was typically serving maybe around 100 people a week. That would have been a busy week. Now it's not that unusual that at just one of our sites, we might serve over 600 people in a day.
Oh,
So, um, and as time has gone on, those people have increasingly, as New York has changed, increasingly been coming from all over the city, not just the Upper West Side, which is based or originally based. Uh, and I mean, just a few things I think are very interesting about the work that happens here. One is that the food at WSCAH is consistently extremely healthy. It's a really core part of what we do. So more than half the food we give out is fresh fruits and vegetables by weight. All of our food packages are designed by a registered dietitian, and they're based on the USDA MyPlate guidelines, as well as designed to be easy to cook with. So at the core of what we do, it's really always been about providing healthy food. Um, we do also do benefits access work in an effort to provide those important wraparound services and make sure that after people pick up food, that
mm,
they're being supported in the rest of their lives, well after they've walked away from the pantry pickup. And that's really important to what we do as well.
sure.
Most of that work is focused on SNAP, or what you may know formerly as food stamps. But we do help with health insurance signups, fare Metro cards, a wide variety of things.
Wow.
Um, so, I mean, those are the core areas of the work. I think that what's been particularly interesting in the last maybe 5 years has been our ability to and our focus on really increasingly thinking about bringing food to people as opposed to asking people to come to us for food.
Mm,
So when we do maintain our original location at 86th Street on the Upper West Side, we now have dozens of what we call community partner distributions. But these are basically local partnerships with a community-based organization. Could be a healthcare provider, could be a social service provider.
mm,
Work with senior centers and daycare centers. We've worked with public housing. complexes. So
all
yeah,
o- all
they're
over
already
all over
all
the
over the
area.
city. Yeah, really. I mean, the only place that we're not presently really working is Staten Island, but I can talk very briefly about some of the ways in which our work does actually extend into that borough as well. But the idea being that, yeah, these are institutions that are providing already a variety of very important services to their communities, have good, strong relationships and trust in those communities. But rather than asking them to try and figure out all of the logistics and complexity of starting a pantry of their own, which is a difficult process and hard to manage, we partner with them to provide those pantry services to their constituents. So I think it's a good system. It lets us be more adaptive and responsive, and it also means that the food is being distributed locally, which is a huge savings in terms of time and energy and convenience for those facing food insecurity. So.
Lots of innovations. I mean, for 45 years, in so many respects, it's unfortunate that WSCAH has to exist, that the need is so great and that it has to exist. But isn't it amazingly wonderful that it does exist to meet those needs? For 45 years, I had no idea that you folks had been in existence for that long and have been trailblazing ever since. And speaking of trailblazing, I don't remember if I reached out to you or you reached out to me, how it all worked out. But here, about a year or so ago, we started a conversation about how WSCA might include poetry. Yes, poetry in some of its programs. Tell us a little bit about the what you did and what you plan to do, and why. Why did you choose poetry as a tool for reaching the community?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to talk about that. And I remember how this all got started too, actually. So I guess the story will catch up with us meeting I'll start from the top. So, a few years ago, as New York City was coming out of the most stringent lockdown requirements of the pandemic. People are beginning to feel a bit more comfortable, a bit safer gathering together, being in person, and
Yeah,
especially in groups in person, right? We began to think about how do we really re-engage all the members of our community, whether that's our donors and our volunteers or our customers, the many people that really work with us in different ways or use our services in something where they can actually meet each other and be in person after years of really virtual galas and virtual town halls and all
right.
just virtual things that really just lack that really fundamental human connection. Um, and one of the ideas that we had, and which we launched in that first year in 2022, was a community block party, which we'd never really done before. We shut down the block right near us on 86th Street. We invite the whole extended whiskey community to come. It's a free event. It's usually have music, opportunities to help with volunteerism, packing food, sorting food. But it's also intended to be a fun, family-friendly day just to get to know each other and really bring everyone who makes our work possible together. Um, and one of the ideas that we had in that was, goodness, we have so many school partners. There are so many young people around us, young people who are passionate about hunger, young people who are facing hunger. And maybe there's a way that we can bring their voices more to the forefront of these conversations. So we experimented. We said, okay, well, why don't we have a poetry contest? We'll have a poetry and writing contest. We'll see if any of these kids are interested in sharing their thoughts in this form. And we'll have them perform those, we'll have winners perform those pieces at this community block party.
Yes.
And a chance for them to sort of expose people directly to what they're doing. And then we'll also publish them on our website. And in that first year, I believe, uh, it was right after that, the Food Bank News was doing a little piece thinking about how other people, and generally in the anti-hunger community, how people are thinking about poetry and the roles of creative work in really elevating the importance of this issue and changing the people are thinking about this issue. And I think that's how we got connected. The reporter in question spoke to you, and they spoke to me, and they said,
Right.
we should speak to each other.
Right.
So after that, we've been working together since.
Yep.
This will be our third year
Yep.
hosting the competition. I think it's evolved in good ways over time. I think that we've been able to refine our prompts and our process. Last year, with your help, we were able to actually have a proper panel of judges, which I think was really important, to making this. I think just to doing it well. And I really appreciated having three experienced poets, um, you know, partnering and
Mhm.
playing this role and actually
Sure,
evaluating the work. So it wasn't just, we at the end of the day, we are an anti-hunger organization. We aren't a writing organization. So just having that external expertise was really helpful.
sure.
Um,
Wonderful that you reached into the young talent as well. I think that you perceived that there was an energy there that could be brought to bear and that you cultivated it through the competition. I think you posted some on the WSCAH website, some of those poems, and we posted some of them, published some of them on the Poetry X Hunger website. You also collaborated with this group, this think tank called Food Tank, to identify young people who could write a poem and then present it at, I believe, for like the United Nations and other kind of think tanky sort of discussions. Am I right there?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, so the food tank, and I don't, I'm not as intimately familiar with all of the work that they do, but they are, I would say, I mean, their name is intended to evoke that think tank kind of mentality,
Right.
but also, I mean, they're also an advocacy organization in many
Yeah.
ways and a news organization in many ways, and trying to bring together many facets of the most interesting work people are doing to fight hunger and change the conversation around food and food policy. So they had I mean, actually, a very interesting event at the New York Botanical Gardens. I think late last year,
Yeah.
just early this year, time is flying
I
by.
know. I know.
But and for that event, which was focusing on food policy and hunger, as well as sustainability, and farming, I think, as a wide variety of subjects in that they were interested by, I think, what they'd seen us do and others do in this area. And they're like, you know what, we would love to have some young voices represented as part of these panels and as part of the overall event. So I did help them sort of think through how do we actually put a call out. And I do think I was happy to see that they were able to secure some contributions from some great young writers and
Writers, right?
actually featured some of them at the event. So
Yeah. So what you're doing has been contagious a bit. And I think as we wind up here, Kira, I'd be interested in, as you would reach out to other anti-hunger leaders like yourself, who might be curious but cautious about including poetry or any of the creative arts in their programming, what would you say to them to try to raise their comfort level about doing so?
I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, I wonder, I mean, part of I would want to understand where their concerns really come from, because I think that certainly we are not a writing organization, we don't have that. None of us here many of us can write hopefully well, but none of us are writers by profession. Um, so, but we've been able to create, I think, despite not having that maybe core skill set behind all of this, I think a great venue and or a great opportunity for student writing to come through. And we've been able to collect a lot of really amazing writing and reflection on poetry from or through poetry on hunger from a number of angles. Um, and it really hasn't been that much work, I would say.
Mm. And do you think
But
you've reached people that you might not otherwise have reached by using these kind of tools,
absolutely. I mean, I
or
think
reached them in a different way?
I think that's definitely true. There's a lot of ways that people talk about hunger. But I think that we tend to, as a system, oftentimes rely upon the information that's most readily available to us in working it, which are the numbers,
Yeah.
or maybe customer testimonials, right? And those certainly have a lot of power. But the kind of I think the kind of thinking that young people bring to social justice problems is quite potent. There's a clarity to it. It's a clarity that I think comes in part because, I think as we all work and go forward in these and learn more and more about the world every day, we find that we see the world and it can get gray, it can get complicated, right?
Mm.
And there's certainly truth to that. But that muddling can also muddle the clarity of thought around sort of the inherent injustices in these
Mm.
questions. And I think there's something incredibly potent about hearing someone so young articulate
Yep.
the profound injustice that is food insecurity, that is hunger, especially in a country that has the potential to wipe this out literally overnight if it wanted
Overnight.
to.
Right.
So I think it's the kind of that kind of passion. Um,
And the fact that they're
we're
they're
lucky to
the
be recipients of it, you know.
they're the vulnerable. They're so vulnerable as well, and they are also the next generation. And so inherently, I think their voice, and then just their enthusiasm, it's
Absolutely.
amazing. I've seen young people capture the attention of audiences that were otherwise not paying attention at all. Um, Kara, I can't thank you enough for being here and for describing WSCAH, describing its work in the poetry world, and then also as you kind of think aloud and would speak to a virtual peer about what you've done. Are there any other kind of key points that you would want to make sure we convey here today before we sign off?
I just think that for anyone who is feeling uh, some trepidation about doing something around writing, around poetry, and trying to link that to their work in hunger, I'd say many other issues in the world. I think it's I just want to encourage you to give it a shot and see how it goes because I think you'll be surprised by what you get. And you'll be surprised by how articulate people can be on the subject, and I think you'll see a lot of benefit from it. So,
And what we're going to have to do too, through the collaborative mode, is make sure that we find ways to bring your organ playing skills to bear and have that as a part of some of the poetry presentation. So we'll bring it all together here at some point.
that
So
would be extremely cool, I have
I
to
think
say.
that would be really cool.
But
Listen, Kara, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us your insights and your good spirit. We really appreciate it and look forward to continuing to work with you.
yes, indeed. We're
Very
going
good.
into Writing Against Hunger, I guess, 2025.
There you go.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
very exciting.
pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks so much.